The Colts keep finding ways to win. The Indianapolis Colts are now 4-2 after beating the Houston Texans on Sunday afternoon. They came out of their bye week and came with some urgency to take control of the AFC South. And for the first time since November of 2015, the Colts now have sole possession of the AFC South, which is a long, long time. And now you're being led by Jacoby Brissett, who has led this team nicely, and this has just become a full team effort as we're seeing this year, and we saw on Sunday and against the Chiefs 2 weeks ago. The Colts are now fifth in the AFC after this game, which is right where they want to be. They want to move up a little bit with the potential of a bye moving into the playoffs, but need to get there first. So control your own destiny with the next four games, as they're very winnable games for the Colts. And I think that the Colts are going to be in a good position here moving forward to make some noise going into the playoffs and the rest of the season. The Colts were led by Jacoby Brissett. He was phenomenal all afternoon, and the Colts quarterback finished the day 26 of 39, 326 yards, and 4 touchdown passes with no interceptions. Just an exceptional day for Jacoby Brissett, although it was against one of the worst secondaries in the league when you're looking at how the Texans play the corner and safety positions. And as we've seen over the years with T.Y. Hilton being able to torch the Texans playing man coverage, and what we saw yesterday. The Colts ran crossing routes all game, and especially in the first half when the Texans were strictly man, and you saw guys like Zach Pascal and T.Y. and Ebron. These guys all came open over the middle of the field in that crossing route, and it led for some nice gains, as it's so difficult in man-on-man coverage to beat that drag route going over the middle, as you've got to be able to keep up the speed of the receiver, and that is hard to do when you're not in zone coverage. So the Texans did switch it up in the second half and threw some kind of zone man looks in there, and they were able to slow the Colts down a little bit. But you looked at what the Colts did in the third quarter, and they were able to keep up with the Texans' kind of surge and late in that game, as the Colts scored 14 points in the third quarter, which is huge, as I thought that the Colts have not been necessarily a great third quarter team this season, and to come out and have 14 big points there in the third quarter, that was huge for you, as in the fourth quarter it kind of slowed down a little bit. But big game for Jacoby Brissett. This was extremely important because the run game, Houston just loads the box, and they have such a big defensive front. It's so hard to run it up in there, and that's why it was such a surprise in the playoffs last season when the Colts beat the Texans, that they were able to dominate the running game the way that they did. And today you saw that the Colts took advantage of the man-on-man coverage with the weak covers really across the board, and Jacoby Brissett stepped up and did what he had to do to lead the Colts to victory. Marlon Mack finished with 18 carries, 44 yards, 2.4 yards a carry. Not very efficient for him, as he's been on a tear this season and was against the Chiefs. So important for the Colts to come out and show that they can win with more than just running the football. And I think that was such a big concern I wouldn't say a concern for people that know the Colts, but with national media, there was, they've labeled this team as a run team now that Andrew Luck is gone. And that is not the case so far this year, as Jacoby Brissett has really been terrific for you in 2019. He's completing his passes at 65%, which is about 5% more than his average for his career before this season. So great, he's making more passes count. He's now has almost 1,400 yards passing, 14 touchdowns, 3 interception, and a 101 QBR, which is great for this point of the season. And he's right up there with the top passers in the league. So he's really showing out in this game, along with the Falcons game. You look at on tape and you're like, this guy is franchise quarterback. So we still don't necessarily know yet. I'm huge on Jacoby Brissett, and he's such a leader of men, and he's done such a nice job for the Colts this far, and he has all the characteristics. So I want to see him throw the ball downfield more. You saw him do that a little bit more against the Texans, and a really nice ball that he threw that T.Y. Hilton didn't wasn't able to bring in was on that right sideline when the Colts were kind of backed up inside their own 10. He throws one to T.Y. there, and T.Y. just it was kind of a back shoulder throw and wasn't able to pull it in, which is such a strange thing to see, as Ty is normally extremely reliable with catching the football. But you also saw Zach Pascal. This is a guy that's become the Colts' number 2 receiver now, right? I mean, he's really stepped up big, and right now, I mean, you're looking at after what he did, and what does he have? 6 receptions, 106 yards, and 2 touchdowns. A big day for the guy out of Old Dominion, and he's really stepped up and shown his worth, as he was kind of one of those bubble guys that was going to be, question of is he going to make the team coming out of training camp. And it's a good thing that the Colts kept him aboard because of the injuries with Paris Campbell and with Funchess. So guys like Pascal, as we've seen, Kane is still developing, and really so is Paris Campbell. So a guy like Zach Pascal that knows, the NFL. This is not his first season, as he's the undrafted free agent signing is looking pretty nice in year 2 with the Colts system. Eric Ebron, this was a big show up game for him, as he kind of silenced some critics a little bit with his play. He finished the day 4 receptions, 70 yards, and the spectacular touchdown grab, which is, when you're looking at Colts all-time catches, I think probably 3 or 4 of them belong to Marvin. But man, I'd have to look back, but that's got to be top 10 Colts catches of all time, and just a phenomenal job. I mean, as we've seen this guy drop just wide open, nobody around him, balls from Jacoby Brissett that are just on his hands, and to bring that one in, spectacular, and got his feet down. And I think that's a huge confidence builder for Eric Ebron. He's really such an important piece for this Colts team when he's like that, and when he's dropping passes like we saw against the Raiders, and when he's kind of like going into a shell and not being that outgoing and charismatic presence that we see him be all the time, that leads to bad things for the Colts. I think he's such a, him and Jacoby Brissett, they lead this team. And even though Ebron, might not be the Colts' best player by any means, he's showing that he, has the ability to be one of the Colts' best players when he's dominant. But he has such an important leadership role on this team, and that's why I'd like to see him come back on a second contract from the Colts this offseason. If he keeps this up, I mean, he's getting national media now, and I'm sure he's going to be wanting the paycheck. So, we'll see how he does for the rest of the year. But a guy that has really not played very well the last several weeks, a big step up game for him, as he was dominant. T.Y. Hilton did what he had to do against the Texans. He is the owner of the Texans, and he was again on Sunday. This was not one of his 150 yard 11 catches with 200 or with 2 touchdowns. He finished the day 6 catches, 74 yards, and a touchdown, but he was efficient. And every pass that he caught, I thought it was meaningful. And he's, takes so much attention from the Texans corners and secondary, as we've seen him just torch them throughout the years. And I'm sure that the focus was on them, and that led to Zach Pascal and Ebron just getting wide open in some of these instances. And that was a great thing, as T.Y. Hilton, when he's on the field, even if he's not catching balls, he is important. And that was true on Sunday, but he came up with some nice catches and was his dominant self. I thought the Colts played a great game for the vast majority of the game, especially on offense. They didn't have many punts until the fourth quarter. The fourth quarter, the Texans were really kind of stepping down, trying to get back into the game, and the Colts, were trying not to make a mistake. And I definitely, I think that's a good thing. That he's not crazy. Frank Reich, that I'm talking about, is not crazy enough to jeopardize the game and as he's trying to put the game away. I thought that he took his shots, and he was trying to throw balls, but the Texans were doing a nice job on defense, and you saw when the defense stepped up big and stopped him on 4th down and 1, the Colts weren't able to do anything with that. They 3-and-out punt. And then the ensuing drive, the Texans go down and throw a pick, and then 3 out again. And that was pretty frustrating to watch. It was like, put the game away. It was at that point, the Colts were not in necessarily a great spot, and the defense stepped up big. And that's what I'm going to talk about now. Defense really played a terrific game. And you look across the board, Darius Leonard made his return, and it couldn't be soon enough, as we've missed him the past 3 weeks. And he came in and made his presence felt. He had 10 tackles and the game-saving interception. Such a storybook finish for Darius Leonard making his return to Lucas Oil. And I thought that this game was predicated on the Colts defense ability to stop the Texans in the red zone. The Texans were one of the better teams in the NFL in red zone scoring, and to hold them to 3 field goals to start the game, and one where Jacoby Brissett fumbles the snap and it's down inside the 10, and they hold them to a field goal in that spot, which if they would have scored there, think about the momentum and just the flow of the game for the rest of the game, it would have been different, and you don't know how it would have played out. So credit to the defense there for coming in and locking up on a play where it was a little questionable call, I will say, but the Colts get the benefit there, and it led to 3 points for the Texans. So I thought that he played a great game. You look at Justin Houston, he had 2 sacks. The one sack was kind of the weird sack where the officials ruled him down by contact. And the other sack, it was later in the game where it was extremely meaningful, as the Colts were getting pressure on Deshaun Watson all afternoon. And whether that was Justin Houston, whether that was Darius Leonard coming on pressure, it was a complete team effort, and the defense really stepped up big. Pierre Desir, this was a guy that we didn't know if he was going to play this game, and he comes out and it gives you one-on-one with DeAndre Hopkins for most of the game. He was shadowing him, and for him, I didn't think it was a perfect game for Pierre Desir. It was a timely interception that he was able to get with a bad throw by Deshaun Watson, but it's hard. It's hard because DeAndre Hopkins is one of the better receivers in the league. We know this, and Pierre Desir was able last season to have a success taking him away. I thought DeAndre Hopkins was still dominant on Sunday afternoon, and he's definitely what kept them in the game, along with Deshaun Watson and his ability to move out of the pocket and make plays. But Pierre Desir played a nice one, as the Colts really did a good job without Kenny Moore, obviously without Malik Hooker still, and for these guys to come together with Darius Leonard coming back, their leader, and prove an important game. And I can't emphasize that enough, as they are now 2-0 in the AFC South and will control their own destiny here moving forward, as the next 4 games for the Colts are winnable games for them, as they will look forward to playing the Denver Broncos next Sunday afternoon. So that's kind of my immediate thoughts after this. I thought that it was extremely important for the Colts to prove to everyone, that that they're a contender, and they seriously are. And I think that it can't be it can't be stated enough. And I think that the Colts have done a good job in proving the naysayers wrong. And obviously, a huge win against the Chiefs to come out and do what you did against the Texans. True credit to them. True credit to Frank Reich and this coaching staff, as he called a pretty much perfect game. And the Colts didn't blink, as they had the one turnover that was pretty ugly, but other than that, the Colts played a really nice game, and I think that when you're looking at the rest of the year, you're going to see the Colts how they were against the Texans. They come out with that 1-0 mantra, and that's not a joke. You hear all the players talking about it, and every week they just try to get better, and that's what they did on Sunday afternoon, as they put in a showing against the Texans, and one that shouldn't have even been as close as it was. But the fourth quarter was a little strange. But that's all I'm going to talk about today from the Colts. I appreciate you guys listening, and hope you guys are happy following that one. That's a great game that the Colts really needed to pick up, and now we're going to see. I think the Colts are going to win this division. You're looking at, they've lost 2 games at this point. They finished the season 10-6 last year with the horrendous 1-5 start and were able to make the playoffs. I think that this year, you have a possibility looking at 11-5 ish. 12-4 would be huge, as that would give you the potential for the first round bye. So, we'll see what this Colts team is made of for the next several weeks, and moving closer towards the playoffs. We're not there yet, as it's not even halfway point through the season, but we are liking what we see from the Colts. Thanks so much for listening, and I will be back with another podcast later this week, and also following the Denver Broncos game. Thanks so much for listening.